All right, we've got the shady draft tonight, so we are showing how to create those live values that we had discussed, in that they update as the draft is occurring, as you know, certain players are acquired and updates those prices. So I'll kind of start further back. It always starts with a set of projections, so I like to go to fantasyfootballanalytics.net. They essentially pull all of them together from a bunch of different sources and sort of just take the wisdoms of the crowds. I think they weight them based on past predictiveness. But anyway, so I go to that. It's hard to see here, but I just export a raw file, and that would then go into this little valuation tool that I have, because we need to then convert all of these stats and points into a dollar amount. So the process for that is taking those projections, and then we've got different scoring inputs based on the scoring of the league. And this is a really important tab right here in terms of valuation, just because these are ultimately what determine replacement value, which is a big piece of valuation. So for this league, the roster is essentially one QB, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, and 1 tight end. So in this way, I've just called it to 1 QB. I'm saying people will play a running back in their flex spot, and then they'll play the 3 wide receivers. So that's pretty material in terms of moving these things around. But anyways, the real key here is that an output, I guess actually one other thing, and the real key is what happens down here. So when I say there's 12 teams and each team rosters 1 QB, it tells me that replacement level is going to be now the QB 13, because that's essentially the QB you can go find on the waiver wire. So that's important, because that's how ultimately valuation is determined. So we have each of the replacement values up here, which depends on, again, that roster construction. So essentially in this case, we're saying that QB 13 is projected for 267 points. I think this was RB 37 is going to be projected for 90 points. WR 37 is for 149, and then tight end 13 is worth 112. So that's ultimately what's driving our valuations here, because every player will then have a value over replacement, which is essentially just taking what they're projected for less that replacement value projection. So let's start with like Pat Mahomes, for example. He is projected for in shady 343 points. So because of that, his VOR is 100. Oh, that's the wrong one. S&P. His VOR is 76 points, because his projection is 76 points ahead above that replacement value. So then what happens there is you then take everyone. So you do that exercise for every single player, and then you add up all of this VOR. So how many points above replacement is out there? So in this case, there's 3,865 points above replacement. So that goes here, and then you just divide that by, or you divide how many dollars are out there total divided by that VOR. So in this case, our league has $200 budgets. Each team has 12, or then each team has $200, and then there's 12 teams. So that's the total amount of dollars out there, 2,400. So we use that here. So we say, give me all the dollars divided by all of the VOR here, and that's the dollars per VOR. So it's essentially 62 cents per VOR. So once you've got that, it's really quite simple to calculate value. It is just simply take that value per VOR and multiply it by a player's VOR. So in this case, Matt Ryan has 32 points above replacement projected. And so if each point above replacement is worth 62 cents, Matt Ryan is projected to be worth $20. So that's essentially the math. The reason that's important is because when we're updating it live, we need to understand those mechanics. And so what I've got here is essentially I've copied and pasted all of that information here. So this was that static value that we have. So now let's create a live value. So I think we kind of need to recreate a valuation sheet, because what we're going to do is I think we need to, and I probably should have prepared this a little better ahead of time, but we're going to need to we essentially need to recreate this right here, because that's what's ultimately driving it, is how much VOR is available, and then what's the dollar per VOR. So if we start with this, let's just bring this over. That's kind of the important piece here. Again, I probably should have prepared this ahead of time, but oh well. So let's just bring that over here. So essentially, let's just sum, and that's you know what? I think the other thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna create a live vor. We're going to need something like a live vor. So let's just call it here like live vor. So essentially once this will be like a, if this will be an if formula, if this is blank, then just give me the actual vor. But if it's not blank, then give me 0, because that means this player has no vor. So in this case, let's say, because I think what we want is if Matt Ryan is then taken for 20, now he has no vor. That vor is out of the player pool. You can no longer buy that vor, I want to say. So I think that's what we would need, is we need this live vor. This is looking pretty janky, but this will get the job done for now. So everyone's got their vor. Let's just copy and paste this value. So everyone's got this vor. So we've got a live vor. And now we need to go over here. And this is going to be our total vor available. Is going to be what is all of that live vor. So it's essentially all of the vor less, who's been drafted already. So in this case, pretty much no one's been drafted, but we'll go test that right now. So that's the live vor. And so this is and then the total dollars is just going to be that 12 teams times every team gets 200. And then live dollars is going to be, I think I'm just going to take, it's essentially this, what we started with, minus all of the dollars spent, which will just be this auction cost column. So we'll start over here. So really it's just that Matt Ryan thing. Cool, so live dollars. And that obviously didn't do that right. It's got to be the sum of all of that. So those are live dollars. So it basically just takes what you had before. Now someone spent $20 on Matt Ryan. So the updated dollars per vor is going to be, actually, let's just say, just for comparison's sake, we'll keep this one down here. That's, pre-draft. And this is live dollars per vor. So now the live dollars per vor is going to be all of the vor, or no, I'm sorry, all of the dollars available divided by the vor left available. So it's actually almost identical, but I think what would happen is if all of a sudden someone overpaid for Matt Ryan, it's pulling out more dollars than vor. And so I think that would actually maybe raise or decrease the price of a vor. Let's try something kind of crazy, like if Matt Ryan goes for 100, that would, so because you pulled out more dollars, now all of a sudden the cost of a vor has gone down because there's just fewer dollars out for that same vor. Does that make sense? We'll keep moving for now, just so we do this actively. But yeah, so basically all you got to do now is you just need to multiply out whatever this live dollar per vor is, multiplied by each player's vor, each player's pre-draft vor. So if we do that, it's just going to be, this live value is going to be, I'm trying to think, should I do it on live vor? It doesn't really matter. We could just say the live value is going to be their original vor times whatever this live dollar per vor is. That's pre-draft. So let's just stick it there. Yep, so that's basically it. No, didn't want to do that. Sorry. I wanted to copy the paste of that. So I think what I want to do here now is, I think a fun exercise could be, let's go look at the keepers and see how, so let's take this off because that's kind of dumb. That's not actually going to happen. So let's see. So you can kind of see some of these values changing. Just kind of highlight this for now. So now let's go update a few of these. So like, let's see, I know a few already off the top of my head. So we're freezing Juju for, so we have him worth 66. This is where it really can come in handy. We're freezing him for 25. So all of a sudden that takes off all the 106 vor, but only takes out $25. So I think because of that, let's see. Yeah, so the valuation now, it's more costly to buy a vor. So, and there's a couple others too. Like, let me see. I think Sean, for example, is freezing Todd Gurley for 48. Let's see, and I believe Nick Chubb is being frozen for 15.